Hello everyone. So here is the review for Yuval Harari's new book Nexus. I've just completed it today. So let's start with the overall book. This is a paperback quality. I bought it for about 800 rupees, roughly 400 pages. You can see the print is quite good. No photos, no color pages, unfortunately, like there was in Sapiens. But so let's just talk about the cover. So the author also explains why he used a pigeon as the cover photo. The pigeon was basically a symbol for peace and compassion. The pigeon and the dove both are supposedly very cultural symbols for peace and compassion. And also pigeons were used as carrier pigeons to carry messages from one place to another. So that also plays into this information network. So the book is about this brief history of information networks from the Stone Age to the AI. And the book is quite neatly divided into three parts: the human networks, the inorganic networks, and then the this computer politics, basically contemporary world. So the crux, if I want to talk about the book, is basically just a second. So this diagram here, the author first talks about whether this view of information, whether it's true or not, that does more and more information gathering lead to some truth discovery about the world, and does it then lead to wisdom or to power? So basically the author calls this the naive view of information, and he suggests that things are not so straightforward. And the alternative view is also, there are very less diagrams in this book, so I am showing you all the diagrams. The second popular view is of the populist view of information, that information is used to establish power. And basically the best example you can say is of how Marxists view the history as power relations, power struggle. So all information is used to establish some power over one group over another, or one tyrant over another group of people. So is this how information is always used in history, or was it the first way that I showed you? And throughout the book, the author claims that this was the first view, the naive view. The author claims that this diagram is the more complete view of information, that information can lead to both truth and order. Some sort of order is imposed, and both these things can lead to wisdom or to power, and how power is distributed within the society's various groups. So that's all what the main argument of the book is. For a simpler example that I can tell you is that of Darwinian evolution in biology. So the naive view would say that as we collect more information about biology, about how evolution occurred on Earth, we discovered some truth about it also, that how life forms have evolved on Earth. And in turn, that has allowed us to gain some wisdom and some power, as in you can say the genetic revolution which is unfolding in this century, but also some wisdom that 99% of all humans are basically sharing the same DNA. So yes, but is it always this case? And this view is basically propagated by the optimists of the artificial intelligence revolution, some technocrats. But the historian Yuval Harari says that this is not the complete picture. It's not always a straight road from information to truth to wisdom or to power. And there is always, or at least there should be, some balance between truth and order, and wisdom and power. And which information network throughout history and even in today's time can best manage this balance between truth and order and wisdom and power, and how information can be, how information is crucial to it. So if I were to tell you from the index, so in the first part he discusses human networks, right? And this is the evolution of human networks throughout history. And I would say the first part of the book is my favorite, because he talks about basically what is information, what can be considered information, very basic definition for lay persons, and then how information networks have evolved since our hunter-gatherer times till contemporary times, when democracy and totalitarianism we have seen in the past century. So, for example, he talks about how when we were in tribal hunter-gatherer groups and we use stories to connect to each other, so that was a sort of information network. Did it have some self-correcting mechanisms? Some did and some didn't. And then we later evolved the information technology of documents, of writing, and the rise of bureaucrats, and how bureaucrats became the myth makers of civilizations. By myth, he doesn't mean fancy fairy tales, but you can say narratives, or the necessary myths that he called in his previous book, Sapiens, that there are certain necessary stories that humans live by. So in that sense, he is using the word myth, and how crucial documents are in those processes. And some documents claimed infallibility. So he at length discusses the evolution of the biblical order, the church, and even the Jewish order, and how time and time again they considered themselves to be infallible institutions of interpreting the Bible, of interpreting the Old Testament, and as the author says, that this is just a fantasy, and with changing times you must have variations in your information or flexibility in your information network to self-correct itself. And that's how we come to democracy and totalitarianism. And in democracy, basically, he is arguing that it is an information network which is much more decentralized, which has many nodes. So there are many avenues for self-correction, for contrasting viewpoints, and whereas in totalitarianism, like he takes examples of USSR and Hitler's reign, and how he tried to basically monopolize information, or make himself the central node of all information, and how those sorts of information network function against those in the democratic regimes. And basically the crux is that democratic systems are better at handling information on a large scale. And then in the second part, he discusses these inorganic networks that are built by AI, how they have evolved, how they are relentless, and they can also be very wrong certain times. And in the third part, he uses the contemporary examples, and this is basically a more speculative viewpoint. Can we still hold a conversation in democracies today? So, for example, on social media platforms, can I still discuss my political viewpoint with another if I don't even know who I'm talking to? Whether it's a real person, a chatbot, a deep fake, and he uses a very beautiful analogy here about the World Wide Web becoming a cocoon, and we are basically trapping ourselves in cocoons. So from a web to a cocoon, it's a pretty good analogy. And then in the final chapter, the Silicon Curtain, this is also a very good analogy about how there is a fear of different, you can say, countries or even alliances becoming sort of also cocoons of different forms of AI. So for example, in China, right to privacy is not that privileged. So some advanced AI can develop there faster compared to United States, or where liberalism or right to privacy is much more cherished. So are we heading towards a Silicon Curtain that will divide the world into such spheres? So this is pretty speculative, but yes, it can be eye-opening. And then in the epilogue also, I'm pleased to see that the author has ended the book on a positive note. Not just positive, he calls it realistic, but considering his past books and this one also, I would say it's very it's optimistic, somewhat realistic, yes, but since most of the book is speculative in nature, based on real examples, it's not purely speculative fiction. He has used real life examples from Myanmar, from USSR, from Russia, from Putin's invasion into Ukraine. So it's an eye opener. This book is an eye opener, and also an invitation to think deeply about these subjects, about how AI is changing our world. And so that's basically the book review. And one more thing, in acknowledgements, I found I just check acknowledgements from time to time about what the authors are, or who the authors are basically thanking or acknowledging for their this humongous task that they do. So it's a good acknowledgement, but I like this. And finally, to my readers who make all these efforts worthwhile, a book is a nexus between authors and readers. It's a link connecting many minds together, which exists only when it is read. So it's like only those who have read the book can understand this. And there are some notes, some 50 pages of notes, quite detailed. And so that's the entire book. I would say it's an essential read in today's time. And just the pricing is a bit off. I think 400 pages of content for about 800 rupees, that's quite expensive, I think, compared to his previous books. And there are no color pages, no diagrams. And one more I would say negative point about this book is that the author could have used much more historical examples to illustrate his point. I found it quite redundant sometimes, because he was referring time and time again towards USSR and the regime of Hitler. And I can quite understand his viewpoint. I mean, he comes from a Jewish background, and the importance of that history, it's not lost on me. But more examples from global history could have made this book much more appealing to me, I feel. So if you have read this book, and I would encourage you all to read this book, at least give it a chance. And it might be somewhat alarmist, but I think it's necessary. It is a necessary read. And like the review here says, it's provocative, and at least you will learn something about history. Some nuggets of history are presented here, and especially the first part of the book, it was quite new to me. So thank you all, and happy reading.